The most common thing that I hear when people are asking me about, hey, how can I set up systems that work with my money psychology is essentially, how do I live for the now while knowing that I'm going to be okay in the future? And the way that I recommend doing that is really twofold. One is by knowing your guilt-free spending number. Now, that is just a different way of saying the wants from the classic 50-30-20 principle. However, I find it so accurate, right? Because like how many of us feel guilty when we spend on ourselves? And yet, what's the point of money? Like it's meant to be the tool that we use to design the lives that we want to live. So if we can identify exactly what is my guilt-free spending number on a monthly basis, then I know that number and I can stop playing by feel. If I know that that number is $600 a month, I can set up a second free checking account. The main checking account is where my direct deposit goes, but I then automate that $600 a month into my guilt-free spending account. That allows me to manage that guilt-free spending number, not by tracking every expense, but by having it in a separate account. And I can do what's called bank balance accounting, which is the way that most people, including myself, actually manage my money. I log into my online app, I see where I'm at with the balance, and I make my decisions based off of that. And the cool thing about that is it allows us to ultimately know intuitively how to manage our money. So we don't have to get all in the details all the time, because over time we practice that enough, we get the immediate feedback by logging into the bank account and seeing what's there, and we begin to just know how to flow with our money. The second thing that we have to be able to do is we got to know that we're going to be okay for the future. That's how we know how much we can spend on today, because we've already done the planning for the future. And the way that we do that ultimately is by automating a contribution into our savings and our investment accounts every single month. We got to do that by seeing the playing field. So I recommend the cash flow spreadsheet. It's a perfect way to see the playing field in order to do that. However, the big point here is that I think many times our culture, we love to focus on rate of return, especially for our investments. But the thing is that rate of return is actually much harder to manipulate than we think it is. When you look at the equation of investing, it's a compounding equation, which we hear about all the time, but it's actually really hard for us to internalize. What does that actually mean? Because think about it. If I was to ask you, hey, what's 8 plus 8 plus 8 plus 8? You could probably do that in your head pretty quickly, like maybe takes 5 or 10 seconds or something like that. But if I go, hey, what's 8 times 8 times 8 times 8? That's a lot harder. Compounding, the number just gets so much bigger so quickly. But the thing is that when you actually look at the equation, what actually matters is time, because that's the exponent in the investing equation. We feel like we have to manipulate the rate of return because that's what we think we can manipulate. But in reality, the amount we actually can increase our rate of return is pretty small. Whereas we feel like we can't manipulate time. But you can. Like, you can do it by getting started investing right now, today, and then letting time do its thing. I would rather, and this is a quote from Morgan Housel, who's a great financial influencer, but I would rather have a completely average rate of return for an above average amount of time than I would to exceed the market, because most people who exceed the market only do so for a couple of years before something else comes into play and happens there. In fact, one other thing is the great investor Warren Buffett, he earned 99% of his net worth after the age 60. So like, yeah, he's a great investor, but the key factor for him was that he started investing at age 11 and was still consistently earning a rate of return at age 92 and 93 or 5, I think. So time is the real key. Get started investing today.